the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Today's sponsor is Audible. They're the leading provider of spoken audio and entertainment. Listen to an audiobook wherever and whenever you want. I do. For more information, to get your free trial, go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. You are listening to the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. And God, the way things are going in Europe, the dollar, metals prices, this is one of those things that reminds me of that old play on Broadway, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. But where would you go? Well, Martin Armstrong's got some ideas. Martin, welcome back.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So the dollar, it's sick. It's going to the dustbin of history, just not quite this moment, right?
No, because it's honestly, it's probably 25 times worse in Europe than it is here. People don't quite realize it. They always focus on what the Fed is doing, etc. Pick up the rug and look over in Europe. The bad loans over there are over $1 trillion, which is why the ECB is talking about confiscating assets of depositors. And you have to understand the structure. They cannot get a unified vote to write a blank check to bail out the banks. Because, Germany is going to say, oh, well, we want to put up money to save a bank in Spain. Our German taxpayers will be paying for that, etc. So you have too much of a dispute over who's going to get what. So effectively, they've come up with this idea of, well, we're just going to confiscate the assets of depositors wherever the bank is. That's it. And the onus is on you to make sure you're dealing with a bank you can trust. Because they don't have the political power to actually get something like that through. And to put it in perspective, at least acknowledged at this point in time is close to 1.1 trillion in bad loans. And it's probably closer to 1.4 to 1.5 trillion. That is twice the size of the bailout that the U.S. did for the U.S. bank, which was $700 billion.
Wow! So it's intractable. It's
just crazy. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. It is something they cannot solve, and it actually reminds me of the S&L crisis, because first you had Congress pass laws saying that the S&L should be lending real estate, et cetera, et cetera. And then in truth, what happened for the 87, the politics change. The Democrats come in and they feel, oh, the rich are getting away with murder. So then they raise the taxes and change the amortization tables on real estate. All they did was create a one-way market. Now everybody wants to sell and get out of real estate. It's no longer tax beneficial to be there. So then you crash the market, which is what Congress did. Then they go lock up all the guys that own the S&Ls and say, oh, it was fraud. No, they did what Congress told them to do. And what you have in Europe is exactly the same thing. Here they went and they told them, okay, fine, your reserves are all the different bonds of the various different governments. We will guaranteeing we're not going to default. Greece defaults. Cyprus basically had Greek bonds, and the banks got wiped out. Mm-hmm. They didn't get wiped out because of derivative trading or bad loans to people in the street. That was not the issue. They got wiped out because of sovereign debt. Right. And so you have a sovereign debt crisis in Europe, which is a real mess. All the banks use that as the very reserves. Mm-hmm. So it would be equivalent to here if the reserves of the banks could be all the bonds of the various different states. And then California goes bust. Louisiana goes bust. New York goes bust. And then whichever banks had the most of that go down.
Right.
So that's really putting Europe in American terms. And quite frankly, you've got to just look at it and judge things from the way, from your own perspective. If you were sitting there in Europe, you're listening to this stuff, you're going to say, what am I going to do? You know, and so the number one thing is to try and move money. And as a result, you're seeing basically the dollar rise, and it's going to go higher because it's the only game in town right now. And you've got Japan as a basket case. The EU, I find the Fed was buying about 60% of new debt of the U.S. government last year. The Bank of England's been buying close to 100%.
Wow.
So you're looking at the pound going below par, and it's just a complete basket case. And the politicians are incapable of solving any of these problems. So it just has to play itself out. And it's going to push the dollar up. And that will be largely a crisis in the sense that by the dollar going up dramatically, eventually that creates the recession for the 2016 turn going into 2020. So as the economy turns down, it will be largely because the dollar has been forced up so high that Americans can't sell anything, can't do anything. And then it will turn.
Right.
Our politicians won't understand. They'll probably be talking about protectionism again and all this other kind of crazy stuff because they're talking about the last G20. Oh, everybody's swearing there won't be a currency war. It's the markets are in control, and the free markets are basically just going to move, and that they're doing a checkmate against the politicians, which is completely brain dead. And France is now proposing virtually to create communism in Europe. They want unified seizure of all money. Why is gold not doing very well over there and stuff like that? It's largely because they have outlawed buying or selling any kind of gold whatsoever for cash. All the antique shows and everything that were in Paris, they said they want information on everybody that buys and sells anything there. So all the shows have canceled. Nobody goes there anymore. They've destroyed the bullion market, and everybody that was in France was going off to Belgium, and then they went after Belgium. It's a complete. Holland is trying. He's figuring, well, his crazy ideas would work if he can seize everything from everybody and prevent them from leaving. Yeah. And that's what they're after. Not that the ideas are bad. Well, let's just seize everybody.
Yeah,
and
that would be fair.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do for an encore? And I think what you're really going to see is major civil unrest because the youth unemployment is like 60%. They don't believe any of this socialistic nonsense that, if we just tax the rich more, you'll be okay. And they go, no, the government goes into your pockets. We get no jobs out of it. What are we getting? Nothing. So their whole future is gone. And in fact, Gallup did a poll which was kind of shocking. They went to all the adults in Europe and said, what would you like to do? And 50% said they wanted to migrate to the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an outrageous number. It was like, what? And almost 2/3 of the youth in France want to migrate. But you can't get apartments in Germany. Switzerland had a policy where if you had an EU citizenship, you could just walk across the border and get a job. Now they're complaining about that because there's 90,000 people from the EU over there. It's just everybody's moving around everywhere. And the governments just haven't figured this out yet. It's their old ideas, which are antiquated, and it doesn't work. I mean, Russia collapsed, China collapsed, and they just keep saying, well, if I can just get my hands around everybody's neck, I'll be okay.
Yeah, right. That will work out great because it's worked out so well in the past. So he's basically talking totalitarianism.
That's where we're headed. And it scares me because it's, I mean, hopefully the economy is so bad that it will just, crash and burn and prevent going further. But unfortunately, we probably have to put up with this trend until it really pushes everybody's buttons going into about 2015. Mm-hmm. Then the business cycle will turn down again, right. And we'll go down from 16 to 20, and it would be more volatile. It would be worse than what we saw 07, down into 09. So it's going to be much worse. And that's why, we said, look, the Dow's going to go to new highs. People thought we were crazy. Look, it's the capital flows. You have to look at international. It's not just domestic. And
it's the only game in town, like you said, the dollar.
That's it. Even China reduced its holdings of euros to below 7%. It's a basket case over there. Mm-hmm. And what are you going to do? You got, the yen, basically, Japan's not doing well. Britain is in terrible shape. Europe is terrible. Where are you going to go?
Good question. Good question.
There's not much left. So we're basically the prettiest of the four ugly sisters.
Do you go to China? I mean, is that really a viable alternative for people?
Not
Asia?
Yet, no. Singapore is, but the same thing there. They're starting to rise up, anti-foreigner, attitudes. Mm-hmm. They're not renewing about 1/3 of all work permits from foreigners. It's just a backlash that has taken place. Mm-hmm. Largely because of inflation. People have gone over there and moved, and Singapore is very nice. We've got an operation there. And wonderful city, can walk around anytime, no problem. And there isn't a dead night. I mean, every night you can go out to dinner and it's packed. But real estate, I mean, a 2-bedroom apartment's like $2 million.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not happy about that one either, right?
No, and the prices of real estate have gone up dramatically. And largely because the foreigners can afford it, and they come in and they've driven prices up really, really sharply. And I mean, I was in Beijing late last year, and I hopped in a cab and went for maybe about 20 minutes, and it's like $2. And I felt like I'm cheating the guy. It's like, here's 10. At least take $10, right? And he's just looking at me like, well, huh? But I realize that's what happens. Mm-hmm. Foreigners go there. We're used to like that being a $50 ride or something. Right. And he's saying $2, and you feel like you're cheating him, So, well, look, just take 10 or something, right?
I have a great story about that for you, too. Talk about Europeans trying to get the heck out of Europe, getting American citizenship. I'm in Palm Beach County, and there's this place called, Riverwalk in Jupiter. And basically, they needed $100 million. They didn't want to finance it through debt. So they got Europeans to pay $500,000 each to invest in a business so that they can then become U.S. citizens. And they raised over $100 million doing it that way. And it's all just an immigration scam, basically. It's amazing. Yeah, I guess we're going to see more of that, aren't we?
You have high-end properties are rising in price over here, particularly in the New York area, and it's mostly foreign buyers.
Right. Yeah, they think
Europeans
it's cheap.
just saying, it's not that even that they think it's cheap, it's just that effectively I got to get some money out of Europe.
Right. Diversification.
So even if they, it's not that they think it's a steal, it's like, all right, fine, I'm not going to lose a fortune on it.
Yeah. Price
if
of
I break
admission.
even, I'm okay. It's like a bank account.
Right. It's a cost of
Because all
admission.
all the banks globally are now reporting back to everybody and what you have.
Mm-hmm.
One guy from Switzerland wanted to open an account at Merrill Lynch with a broker that he knew.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it.
Really?
Oh, it has to go through the international desk. And, that broker will get some commission for 2 years only. And he said, I don't want to deal with the international desk. I want to deal with somebody I know. No, sorry, you have to go through the international desk.
So
Why? Because Merrill Lynch is basically reporting everything you do back to your government.
Yeah, so that's financial tyranny, effectively. That's what we're
That's
talking about.
basically it. And
Repression,
you
tyranny.
can't- So it's getting very, very bad, and you can't. So ironically, real estate, some of the top end stuff is coming back because it's out of the banking system.
Yeah, and we see it here in Palm Beach County. We've got a wave of hedge funds, quote unquote, opening branch offices. Howard Stern just bought a $52 million mansion in Palm Beach. I would expect he's going to phase out of New York and phase into Florida, where he pays no state income tax, because that's one of the ways you got to try to survive confiscation is moving to low tax states.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
or lower tax.
It's definitely I mean where you would pay an income tax over here in the Northeast comes out to probably 60%.
Yeah.
Compared to if you were in Switzerland, about 8.8%.
Mm-hmm.
Singapore, 15%.
Right.
And the streets are perfectly paved. There's no potholes. Best education. And you wonder, how can they do it with only 15% and we can't do it with 60%? There's just too many hands out. My brother-in-law and his twice removed cousin has got to get their cut.
Yeah. Everybody's got to get their piece of the action. Like I said, I always liken it to a New York City crime families battling it out. But you raised the point that at least they have their eye on the bottom line when all is said and done, and the people who are running the show in D.C., which seems to be the recessive gene pool capital of the East, they don't have their eye on the bottom line. They're just battling it out with clubs, and nobody cares.
Yeah, it's largely they don't really care at all. I was deeply involved in attempting to do the tax reform back in the early 90s, and it was a joke, absolute joke. To show them, okay, fine, we abandon income tax, we go to a retail sales tax, we would actually increase revenue, but no, they'd like the power over individuals. And Social Security, I mean, I was involved in that too, trying to cut it loose to make it a tradable, an actual investment fund that we would put out to fund managers.
Right.
And couldn't do it because largely the politicians, how do I know he's going to do it? I want to be able to pick the guy. And
mm-hmm.
and so no reform could take place because everybody wanted their brother-in-law in charge.
Yeah, funny how that works.
It just, nothing works. Nothing.
Yeah. Yep. And if there's anything good coming out of the IRS scandal that we're seeing unfold, it's that perhaps some people down there in D.C. will come to the realization that abolishing the IRS is really the only way to go about this.
Well, the IRS is actually the most lethal weapon they have, because that's how they control the press.
Mm-hmm.
And largely, I know members in the press, and they call up and they say, and the government says, listen, we'd appreciate it. We don't want you to run this story or twist it this way or that way or whatever. And if you don't comply with their friendly request, the IRS shows up at your door.
Yeah.
And that's it. So effectively they can alter anything they want at any time.
Mm-hmm.
But the news they always play games with. I mean, I remember there was a guy across the building in Texas who was shooting just IRS agents.
Yeah, right.
In the morning when the news came out, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it got to the nightly news, he's just a crazy guy shooting people randomly on the street.
Yeah.
The whole part about being across from the IRS building and only selecting IRS employees completely omitted.
Yeah, funny how that works. So
yeah, and I've seen it done. They do it numerous times. In Jersey here, there was a guy who plowed. He saw a cop with, radar,
mm-hmm.
and he went off the road straight into him, plowed in, and killed the cop and himself. The first news about it was that he was a disgruntled driver. His car was filled with tickets, et cetera, right? Yeah. By the nightly news, it was, this guy inadvertently went off the road, plowed into a policeman, and 2 of them were killed.
Great. You gotta love it. Well, hey.
Yeah, no more about the tickets and disgruntled or anything. That's all gone.
So gold and silver. We talked about. I talked to you about 8-9 months ago. Maybe it was as much as a year, and you said it's not going up probably till the summer of 13. Any revision on that forecast?
No, I think that we have a shot at making the bulk of the loan by probably June,
mm-hmm.
and target is still about the same. We get down to the 1050 area to 1150.
Mm-hmm.
Then there should be a bounce. There might be a lower low in 2015,
right.
But we're not looking at dramatic. I mean, if you look at the way markets trade, when it came off the 1980 high from 875, you went to 293 by 1982.
Mm-hmm.
We then rallied into 83. Then you went back down into 85. The 85 low is only 280. So you're talking about, it's $13 lower.
Right.
So what we're looking at here is the bulk of any decline is usually within the first 2 years. So that should be here in 13. Then there should be a bit of a lift, and then a retest of lows, maybe one more new low later on. But that won't be dramatic.
Right.
So the bulk of the decline should be this year. It is simply what you normally do after 13 years up. It's like you're tired. You got to lay down, take a rest, and you wake up in the morning and you feel refreshed again. Mm-hmm. Markets operate the same way, and what we're looking at right now is probably this surge for the dollar into 15. So I don't see gold taking off before then. And our original target that, we weren't looking for anything until 2017 is about right. So I think we normally get one of these phase transition type things where there's dramatic price movement. But those things are contained, short periods of time. They're not, it doesn't take like a long period. If you look at gold, for example, 1976, it bottomed at 100. Mm-hmm. It took to 1979 to get up to 400 in early December. But from early December into January 21st, it goes from 400 to 875.
Mm-hmm.
So you get these bursts. This is the way commodities trade. They're not a linear progression. It's not like an airplane rising gradually. These things tend to be very short-term bursts. So the burst up that we're looking at for metals, I've been saying all along, is largely between 15 and 17. It's just not ready. We aren't ready for prime time.
All right, so that's the deal. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the Financial Survival Network. We're really looking forward to seeing you in Texas at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium from June 28th to the 29th. It's going to be a great event, and we're really interested in hearing your story and hearing your views on the world economy and the markets. What craziness is possessing them, and why things work the way they do or don't work, as the case may be.
It's all connected. You put pressure on one side, it's got to be, you see it on the other side. So it's all connected.
Absolutely. So it's armstrongeconomics.com. Regular articles appearing there. One recent one about silver, another one about the Brains Trust, which sounds like somebody made a mistake when they were reporting it back in FDR's time, but it kind of stuck. We got article on real estate and gold and all that good stuff. So we will see you in Dallas in end of June, and go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, sign up for that event, meet Martin, and you can also go to libertymastermind.us and see all the speakers who are going to be there. Martin, again, thanks. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
This show was brought to you by Audible. When it comes to audiobooks, there's only one place to go. That's audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. Sign up today, get a free 1-month membership and a free audiobook. And send us an email. Let us know how you like that book.